Have you seen Game of Thrones? A new season just came out and it's just been, well, amazing, I guess. And now it's gone. It only had 7 episodes and now we gotta wait another year to see what the final season will hold. Well, I know what it'll hold. It'll have more battles than ever, because so far it just seems that it just got more and more battles with every season, so it's just gonna be slaughtered 24/7, that's for sure. But while we wait, here's a list of shows that I would recommend for people who really like Game of Thrones and want more of it, even though there isn't more of it. And nobody reads books, right? That would be ridiculous. What a waste of time reading. Well, at least for me, because I read so slowly. It'd be faster to have it on audiobook, and I could even work in the meantime. Anyways, first of all, it's Rome. It's HBO's Rome. Some people say that it's the spiritual successor of Game of Thrones. God, I can't believe I said that. I meant predecessor. It came before Game of Thrones. It only went for 2 seasons, but it was a beautiful, historically accurate depiction of Rome. Even though, unlike Game of Thrones, it actually doesn't have a lot of battles in it. Most of the time it just skips the battles entirely, which I don't mind, because you've seen one battle, you've seen them all, but it's all about the characters, and that show has great characters, and they're doing amazing things. And they got their cocks out all the time. Or are they just talking about cocks? Oh, no, Spartacus, that's the one where they have their cocks out. Yeah, you could watch Spartacus as well, that one's alright. Secondly, Vikings. Vikings is brilliant. It started out being really historically accurate, and then it got less and less historically accurate, and more dramatic, but it's a really good show, and it doesn't waste time like Game of Thrones does, because Game of Thrones just wastes so much time, and the story just never gets anywhere. But that's fine, because it's, well, I mean, I guess it's not fine, but it's just the way it is, with lots of padding, lots of pointless conversations being had, and lots of battles that are far too long. Vikings has, I guess it has a few battles, but then Vikings doesn't have the Game of Thrones issue where it has 1 million main characters. Nope, Vikings has like 3, and that's good storytelling. It has 3. I mean, it has just basically Ragnar and his family, and that's mostly it. And you follow them, you see them go on a raid, and then they come home from that raid, and then it skips forwards a year until another raid happens. It doesn't waste time. We don't have to see them living stupidly and boringly. It often skips forward and just goes to the interesting parts. Things that Game of Thrones doesn't do. But then again, in Game of Thrones, you just have a lot of different... It's just such a large world, there's always some kind of conflict going on, but it would be better storytelling if it was just... if you could just see one story at a time. But anyways, Game of Thrones is still good. And so Vikings, that was my recommendation. It's a great show about Vikings. Not to be confused with the movie Vikings, which is pretty old. It was alright, but I'm talking about TV shows here. Or the 2 games that are called Vikings. One of which was fairly decent. The other one I haven't played. Vikings, the show about Ragnar Lothbrok, who goes on raids and discovers strange lands where they speak English. But then the Vikings also speak English, so whenever there's a conflict of language, then you see them speaking a weird different language that you never heard before. It's something that happens. But it's a really good show. Definitely worth watching. Alright, number 3. It's called Rain. Like the thing what a king does, not the thing that falls from the heavens. It's Rain. It's about Mary, Queen of Scots, apparently. Though it's not very historically accurate. and there's magic in it and such. So it's more like Game of Thrones in that way. And it's got a female main character, so it's almost as social justice warrior-y as Game of Thrones. Nah, just kidding. It is a little bit. If you focus on all these women and they kicking ass, then it's definitely unauthentic. But Game of Thrones is highly unauthentic anyways, because it's just got the worst warfare, for example. They don't have archers or anything. They just run in and they don't even shoot each other. They just... they're just the worst battles. And they swing around giant hammers that no man could lift. And the costumes are retarded too. Some of them are just wearing leather as if that was armor. And they pretend like armor is this heavy thing, which it isn't. Lots of people used to wear armor in the medieval times, and it didn't slow you down or anything. And if you weren't wearing armor, you certainly weren't wearing leather, because that's just fashion. That doesn't offer any protection at all. Oh, Jesus. Right, Rain. So, Mary, Queen of Scots, is forced to marry this French prince, who she doesn't like at first, but then she likes him, and then there's a lot of drama, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of intrigue going on, and it's not unrealistic. There's no women that are warriors or any bullshit like that, like you could see in Game of Thrones. It's all just a poor fish out of water Scottish girl that's stuck in a French court full of decadent, disgusting, unwashed Frenchmen. And then at times you can also see grotesque Scottish men and their lack of pants. It's great. It's a bit like Tudors, but it's more... Actually, I haven't seen Tudors in a while, so I can't make that comparison. Tudors is probably alright too. Alright, next up is Black Sails. Apparently from the same network that made Spartacus the series. Black Sails is also very interesting. Just like Spartacus, but it's about pirates instead of gladiators, so clearly it's already from the start it's 10 out of 10, because pirates. It has a lot of things where it's just... it's based on the pirate story that is the Treasure Island, and there's been several movies about the Treasure Island. I've been trying to find a good one, but I haven't found one yet. I've seen the latest one where apparently it's just important characters have become black for no reason and and stuff like that. But anyways, the Treasure Island is a book originally, so it's based on the prequel of the book, I guess. So you see Captain Flynn and Long John Silver before he was long or silver, and you can see what journeys they go on to become the pirates of legend, to become the man that they've been described as in the book, and it's really interesting. They have to make a lot of hard choices, and nothing is easy for them. It's a warts and all depiction of piracy, and it's pretty good. And God, is it fucking beautiful. I mean, there's rarely anything that compares to the beauty of a pirate ship or a British Navy ship of that time period. I think it's just the most beautiful object in the world. It's amazing. The modern ships, they look nowhere near as beautiful, and older ships are just small and non-impressive, but pirate ships, the best ships ever. And you get to see a lot of pirate ships in that show. It's all the good stuff. It's all the best. You should watch it. And last but definitely not least, probably one of the best in fact, is the Borchers, with Jeremy Irons playing the Borchers Pope. I forget his name. And then there's his sons, Cesare and oh god, I don't remember. His sons, one of them's supposed to be a priest and the other one's supposed to be a warrior, but the one who's a priest, he doesn't want to be a priest and he wants to be a warrior, and then the one who's supposed to be a warrior, he's not great at his job, and so there's a lot of drama, and entirely the Borchers family is basically like one of the earliest versions of a mafia family that you could think of. They're just an original crime family. That's one of the posters for the show says. They just go, they bribe the people who vote for the Pope so that they can become the Pope, and then they make all kinds of blasphemous things. They fuck around, they murder, they use really weird weapons to stab their enemies in the balls. It's great. You should definitely check that one out. It's got all kinds of... It's almost like Game of Thrones, I guess. It might be one of the most Game of Thrones shows I've mentioned so far. So there you go. You wish there was more Game of Thrones? Well, no longer. You've got all these shows now that you could watch, and they're mostly nearly as good as Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones is pretty good, but it's not perfect, especially when it comes to accuracy of... well, I wouldn't say historically accurate, because they don't have any... It's not real history, Game of Thrones. In fact, it's high fantasy, because it's got dragons and sorcerers and fucking white zombies. From season 1, it's filled with magic, but even then, it doesn't explain why they've got all this ridiculous weaponry and armor that doesn't work, and why they're completely too dumb to know how to fight. Should be called game of LARPing. They're basically just role-playing characters, all of them. Alright, there you go. Sorry about being offensive about Game of Thrones. Subscribe and like and such. Goodbye.